Captain America is off the market. New York Comic-Con previews lots of content, new box office numbers shuffle, and we preview a few of the upcoming fall films we're looking forward to. All of that and more coming up here on Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your one-stop shop for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's J. Scotty St. Clair, standing in as host and producer here for Matthew Carroll, and I am joined by an illustrious crew here. I've got with me the man with a beef with Shang-Chi himself, Mr. Simu Liu, Jay Sisson. What's happening, Jay?
Hey, he's earned that beef, okay? I didn't go looking for it. He brought it to the table. It's his fault. He was the one who spoiled a very key moment in Star Wars for me for no reason at 6 a.m. So that is totally on him. The ball is in his court to make it right.
Yeah. Fair enough. We don't shame you for your beefs. They're legitimate beefs.
I'm not going to fight him because he's a martial artist and he would destroy me, but, I can still be mad at him.
For sure. And also Haley Hobbs, who doesn't quite have a beef with Ariana Grande, but I remember something about you not being overly impressed with something about her.
Ariana Grande doesn't know I exist, so Is it even really a beef?
Okay. I guess I should throw myself under the bus here too. I don't know why I went with those types of intros, but I'm not the biggest fan of Pete Davidson. So Pete Davidson, if you're out there listening, if you want to, meet outside by the basketball goal at 3:00 or something like that, let's go. All right.
Yeah, to be on this podcast, you're required to have a beef with a celebrity. I think that's right. just going forward. That's the rule.
That you have that beef.
Yeah, exactly. Whether or not they're aware of it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess the way I would describe this news week is that it was a little bit more of a snooze week rather than a news week, but we did, find some things to talk about, and I'm pretty excited to talk about it. How are you all feeling?
Yeah, that's just that's the side effect of the times that we're in with the strike. The longer it goes on, that spigot just keeps getting closed more and more, and the news dries up. So, but we keep bringing it to you every week here at Multiverse News. We can find things to talk about.
Oh yeah. And the first thing we have to talk about here might be one of the most hard-hitting, hard-boiled news stories we've ever discussed here on Multiverse News. This is the riveting news you tune in to Multiverse News for. But in a surprise intimate ceremony in Massachusetts, Chris Evans and partner Alba Baptista have officially tied the knot. Surrounded by his Marvel NDA-signing co-stars Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, and Jeremy Renner, Evans collectively shattered hopes and dreams for everyone who has been in love with the star-spangled actor for years. Maybe he feels it's been a long, long time, but fans still held out hope, right?
Yeah, I mean, that sound that you hear right now is just people wailing across the nation as this plays into their ears. This is probably the saddest news we've ever dropped on anybody. Chris Evans is off the market. Now, this is a news podcast, so I don't know how deep we want to go in the controversy surrounding Chris Evans' relationship and the pretty large age gap that exists between him and his now wife. I'm not going to go there, but I know Haley wants to go there. So, Haley, what do you think about Chris Evans getting married?
I just think we'll see how it goes. It's a hefty age gap between the two of them, and Hollywood being what it is, it's a tough environment to have a relationship in. I do wish them all the best. He seems like he's super happy with her and all of that, and that's great. So that's what you want your marriage to be like. Jay and I know we are both married to people, so it was funny how it circled the web, though, and I mean, fans were just heartbroken. Even a girls' chat that I'm in, it was like, this is the hard-hitting news of the day,
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Hey, this is America, and you're Captain America. If that makes you happy, hey, go for it.
Right, yeah. And, talk about taking one of the most eligible bachelors in our zeitgeist off the board. It has, ramifications. But I've always viewed Chris Evans as kind of a pretty leveled-headed guy, given the level of stardom he has. He seems like he's pretty down to earth, has, not letting the stardom really take him to a another plane in terms of his ego and whatnot. So the fact that he's waited to, be a 42-year-old man, I think he's capable of making good decisions, and I think he must have seen, a valuable partnership there. And, I think people that, live and operate in Hollywood, they're just kind of like, their experiences are so vastly different from the rest of ours. The fact that like he's Captain America, he's a household name. I don't know if Alba Baptista is quite there with her starring role as the warrior nun, but she certainly has, experienced some of the stardom and the world travels and whatnot. So, hopefully they're a good pair, and I wish nothing but happiness for all of them. And the rest of us are just going to have to be satisfied with those cardboard cutouts we keep in the room. So.
If we were a more cynical podcast, we'd take bets at this part in the show and how long the marriage is going to last. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
No.
It's the over/under on this.
We're happy. We're happy for Chris on this podcast.
Yeah.
I did think it was funny that like the news outlets that were reporting it were like, he made his guests surrender their cell phones and sign NDAs, and I'm like, that's old hat for most of these people.
Yeah, that makes
true.
complete sense.
Yeah, I know when they were courting him for the role of Captain America, like they approached him several times because he had his reservations about, being a superhero again and having that level of limelight. So I think it makes sense, the fact that, he still very much respects his privacy and the privacy of his partner. Producers hawking their productions, including Jason Blum of Blumhouse and Matthew Vaughn. Fans of horror will enjoy the Designing Worlds of Horror in Scream, Insidious and More panel, featuring costume designers behind Scream 6, Insidious: The Red Door, The Walking Dead, and Twisted Metal, alongside the production designer for Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher. Disney Plus will premiere glimpses of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Goosebumps, and Monsters at Work. Attendees will have the chance to get autographs from stars like David Tennant, Ewan McGregor, Susan Sarandon, and more, as WGA and SAG-AFTRA members can attend as individuals but are prohibited from appearing to promote past, present, and future work tied to their contracts. Does it seem like cons are shaping up despite not having the flashy roundtables they're known for?
So I have a friend who's going to New York Comic Con specifically like to see most of these actors, and he's very excited about the fact that he gets to meet a bunch of them. And I wonder, I'm going to ask him, he's actually potentially going to guest on the show in the future.
Oh.
I'm going to ask him how the interactions are when you can't talk about these things that they've been in. So like, what do you talk about with Ewan McGregor when you're standing next to him for a photo and you're like, hi, Obi-Wan, but you can't talk about it. However,
you just say you have the high ground and you move on.
yeah, he can't come back at you. I've heard that, like with San Diego Comic-Con, which was in the same boat, but things were even a little rockier. I don't know that many celebrities went to San Diego. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But people who have been attending them have been having just as much fun. And I don't really think that we're missing out necessarily. I've also been listening to a lot of interviews with like comic book artists and writers and those kind of people that go to these cons, and they're like, these are really showing that there's still something for everybody. And I think that that's the point of all of these comic cons. And so yeah, this isn't surprising. Obviously we know the strikes are still going on, but I don't think that the cons are being diminished because of it.
Yeah, my estimation of New York Comic Con was always that it like played the younger sibling to San Diego Comic Con and, focused on TV and streaming series and whatnot. So I never paid quite as close attention to New York Comic Con, but I'm all about the silver linings here. So the fact that we're hearing from people that, don't have celebrated roles as much, like production and costume designers, they're finally getting the opportunity to speak up and have the limelight for a second. I think that's, definitely a net positive here in the midst of the strike. And the fact that, there's still this event that people that are so, rabid in their fandoms and can you create community and bonding and a shared experience over that. I think that's all great. The other side of it that I do think about that I didn't think about until you mentioned like the celebrities like Ewan McGregor being there, and like I can only just imagine what like some people are going to do to try and get them to break, whatever things they're not allowed to do. Like there's this at Disneyland, there was this whole thing about like for a time, anybody that was like costumed as like a Toy Story character, if somebody yelled Andy's coming, they had to like drop to the floor like motionless. So there are tons of videos like all over YouTube about like these adults going and they're like, Andy's coming. And like after a while they just didn't enforce it anymore. So you have these like mascots just looking at people. I just see stuff like that already happening. Like, hello there. Hello there. It's like, I can't say it back to you.
He's gonna have like lockjaw by the end of it, just from clenching his teeth.
The both San Diego and New York Comic Con, I think, have done a pretty great job at adapting because the hits kind of keep coming. I mean, you had the pandemic, obviously, was a huge hit. Then you had the whole year or two that followed after that of just kind of the fallout from the pandemic and everything like that, regulations, like all the things that made an event like that not happen. So you had all that. Then you had all of the major players, studios, streamers starting to gradually pull out for their own big announcement events where they announce their projects on a stream or through their Twitter or something like that instead of doing it at Comic-Con like they'd always done. And now you've got just this whole strike going on top of it all. So it's just like all of these barriers that would really tear down the thing from its core and make it kind of a non factor in today's world. The cons have really adapted well and leaned into other things like costume design, set design, interviews with people who create comics, like different types of people being able to bring their products and their exclusives and their merchandise, and then all the cosplay and all of that stuff together has made it kind of adapt and shift away from the Hall H and the big flashy stuff to like, this is just a meeting of people who are interested in the same thing, and they're here to just celebrate that. And that's the move. I mean, I think you're going to kind of see it start to keep climbing if it keeps leaning into that fan base type atmosphere.
For sure. Any final thoughts on New York Comic Con before we move on? All right, let's talk some box office. All right. The Nun 2 came in ahead of expectations this weekend, pulling in an $85.3 million global box office opening, $32.6 million of which came from its domestic outing. Oppenheimer and Barbie will also hit major milestones this week at the international box office as Oppenheimer closes in on crossing $900 million worldwide, and Barbie will pull over the $1.4 billion mark. Denzel Washington's The Equalizer 3 and Blue Beetle also both crossed the $100 million worldwide box office mark over the weekend.
Yeah, I think looking at all these, there's a lot there to talk about. I do think it's very interesting that The Nun 2 had such a good outing. I mean, I know we're coming up on Halloween, but this has been a trend in the box office this year, and that is that people are going to the theater to see horror movies. Like, horror is really popular right now, and you see other examples of this from throughout the year. You see like Evil Dead Rise is another example of movies that people are kind of saying, well, don't really know what to say about this. We don't really know where it's going to come in. And then it comes out and it does 30, 40, $50 million domestically and kind of keeps growing from there, especially coming out right up next to October and everything like that. I think it's proof of something that's happening, right? Which is that we've talked about it with different movies. We've talked about it a lot with Barbie and Oppenheimer, but it's this idea of an experience in the theaters. People are sort of looking at movies and they're looking at advertisements and they're saying, that's a movie that I'm going to catch on streaming, and that's a movie that I'm going to catch in the theater. And I think more and more you have people, especially horror fans, are saying, I want to catch a horror movie in the theater. Horror movies are traditionally very inexpensive to make compared to big box office like superhero movies. Typically, those movies have between a $100 and $200 million budget.
Right.
Horror movies can get away with 30%, 20% of that. I mean, just so much smaller budgets. So to see that, I think it's a really interesting trend, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that going forward. This is, by the way, for doing the count, this is the 9th installment in the Conjuring franchise. So that is a franchise that is still growing. TV series on the way, and I think there's another Conjuring movie on the way. So we're going to see like Conjuring Avengers at some point. You're just going to get all these people together on the screen, and it's going to happen. You just got to get ready for it. Now, I will not be seeing The Nun because I'm too scared, but other people go see it. So a lot of people went and saw it.
Yeah. We kind of predicted that the box office might cool off, especially once school started and people were busy with those kinds of activities, but we're kind of seeing the opposite. In fact, The Equalizer did a huge weekend when it opened over Labor Day, and now The Nun 2 doing a big, and then even I'm going to wave my little flag for Blue Beetle crossing $100 million. Like, go Blue Beetle. I'm so excited that movie is doing that well. And I think that what I've been seeing on like ads and stuff, even when I was eating dinner earlier, a Dumb Money trailer was pulled up, and we're going to talk about that later, but it was like in theaters only, and they're kind of going back to that instead of just here's the movie trailer and not telling us in theaters only, or not telling us in theaters and streaming on X date. So we're seeing, like we've talked about back when Jeff was on the show and stuff, we're seeing this move back to kind of how things were before COVID, before all the crazy stuff happened. And I did notice that when I watched that trailer, and I thought that was interesting.
So last weekend, I went back and got caught up on the Equalizer film so that I could complete the trilogy. And this weekend, I had to make the hard-hitting choice about whether to do that with The Nun or whether to do that with My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And I decided to do it with The Nun, as the box office numbers show here. I don't think I was alone in that decision.
As not a horror person, I can tell you you've made the right decision.
I thought you were going to say, you let me down, because I thought you were going to say, I went and watched all 8 Conjuring movies.
Oh, I think I probably have seen all the Conjuring movies. Just I didn't see the first Annabelle movie just because the overall consensus was that the follow-up creation was a much more solid entry. But I'll say this about The Nun. Going back, it was made well, but it was probably the most boring entry in the Conjuring film universe for me. And The Nun 2 pretty much improved on The Nun in every single aspect, but it still just didn't do a lot to move the needle for me as a horror movie. It was pretty run-of-the-mill. The director, Michael Chaves, like, obviously the Conjuring universe is all in on him, because I think this is like the 3rd or 4th movie he's directed, starting with La Llorona, and like he's apparently their guy, so they like what he's doing there. But outside of that, I will say, like, this does just speak to a healthy box office, which I like to see, and I think it does speak to a trend where the franchises or the films that people may expect to be the ones that are thriving are not doing so. But there's definitely an interest in some counter programming and maybe exploring, just films that are a little bit different than what has been, commonly accepted as the shoo-ins here. So I like to see these numbers just as a fan of the theater experience and the box office. Like, it gives me confidence and encouragement that we're going to continue to have theaters appearing, because there was conversations not all that long ago, like in the midst of the pandemics, like, do we really need theaters? Or theaters going to become like this, like almost like roller coaster type experience where you only go for these big events? And that may still be the case for some people, but these numbers do show that that's not the case for everybody.
Well,
yeah,
like,
people
Barbie's
are
still raking it in, and as of this recording, September 12th, it's officially available on digital. It's not streaming yet, but Barbie's still climbing past Super Mario Brothers, and you could watch it at home now.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Barbie maybe today crossed into like the 14th highest grossing movie of all time. It's either like 14 or 15. It's like right in that mix. So it might end up, looking at it today, it's kind of in striking distance of crossing the next. I think it's right behind Avengers Age of Ultron. So it could even hop over that. I mean, it's crossing over an Avengers movie. Like, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy stuff, especially like Avengers Age of Ultron was a different box office atmosphere than now. So, I mean, it makes it even more impressive. But I am a little bit disappointed. You mentioned Barbie coming out on digital. A little disappointed in Christopher Nolan. Put Oppenheimer on digital at the same day. Like, let's do the Barbenheimer digital. I mean, come on. Like, people would have double featured it at home. I mean, no, I know why he didn't do it, because he probably hates all this, and he's like, go watch my serious movie about the atomic bomb. Please don't associate it with Barbie.
Yeah. Well, and Oppenheimer's really been picking up steam at the international box office. Like, it's continuing to do very well. So it behooves him not to.
I don't think it'll break $1 billion, but it's going to get darn close. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's going to cross 900. It's going to sniff it for sure.
Yeah, it's made the top of like a bunch of lists because it has the unique distinction of being like a number one movie that never held the number one spot because of it was always in competition with Barbie. So
yeah.
$1 billion movie and it's playing second fiddle. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. All right, so we've hinted at a couple of these already just in our conversation, but let's talk about the movies still to come out this fall season. We've got a list of the movies that are still due to come out in 2023. Who wants to kick things off with one of the ones they're anticipating the most?
I'll go first because I have a plug too.
Okay, great.
So this week, A Haunting in Venice opens, which is Kenneth Branagh's third installment in his Agatha Christie adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
As previously discussed on this podcast, and as I was shamed by my co-host Scotty, I grew up in a PBS household. And so
Just own it. Own it.
these were the kinds of things like I grew up watching. My parents were super into murder mystery. When you go to their house, they've always got Acorn on. Like, that is just their thing. And so I grew up watching this. My brother and I would watch the David Suchet series, which is the BBC series for those who are listening and know. And I have enjoyed Brana's takes on these movies. I prefer Death on the Nile to Murder on the Orient Express. And if you want to listen to myself, Ashley Coffin, and Bill Berea talk about those movies, we have a episode on Bingers Assemble releasing sometime this week. And then we'll be crossing over to Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater to cover A Haunting in Venice. So tune in.
One woman podcast network.
Haley, I just wanted to say
I'm on number 3 this week.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I do agree with you that I prefer Death on the Nile over Murder on the Orient Express. So I'm interested in A Haunting in Venice for 2 reasons. The first of which being that it's, as a fan of horror, I'm really interested to see some of these supernatural elements like incorporated into the story, and a character like Hercule Poirot, I think I'm saying that right. Just the way that he's all about, like, I have to be able to see it and touch it to believe it. So for him to be challenged in that way, I think is going to be really cool. But then we talked off air about how I'm just really curious to see what Tina Fey does in this movie, because she feels so out of place to me in the trailer. But I'm still excited.
Well, in this one, the other 2 have been the same title as the book they're based on. This one's not. The book that it's based on is called Halloween Party. So they're kind of deriving different things. But
okay,
you'll see. If you read the book and then watch the movie, or vice versa, you'll see why they cast Tina Fey.
Okay. I trust you.
So for me, I am the first movie that I'm going to see from this list is a kids movie. I will be seeing Paw Patrol in theaters, not because I want to, but because I have kids and they want to. So I'm not going to talk about Paw Patrol. I am instead going to talk about The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I'm very intrigued by. Like, I thought I read the Hunger Games books. Like, I watched the movies. I thought they were relatively solid. I was in on that culture when it was at its peak, and I was really not super like, we need a Hunger Games movie, but then I saw the trailer and I thought it was really interesting. And I think, to me, like, what a good prequel should do is a good prequel should change the way that you view the original story in some way, that when you go back and view the original story, you see it through a completely different lens. Like, it doesn't confirm what you already believe. It changes what you already believe about certain characters. And I do think that this movie, from what I've seen, at least in the short trailers that I've seen, is that it does have the potential to do that. It has the potential to change the conversation around some characters in this universe. So I'm really interested in it. I think it will be a fun, like, fall movie, especially if you're into that franchise, just kind of maybe re-sparking that interest in that franchise again.
Yeah, when I went to see The Nun 2 on Friday night, it did attract a little bit of a younger crowd, even though it was an R-rated horror movie. And I've seen this Hunger Game Ballad of Songbirds and Snake trailer a number of times at this point, and this was the strongest reaction to that trailer I had seen, this younger crowd. So while I thought this one was going to be dead in the water upon arrival, apparently there's a little bit more interest, and I guess the Hunger Games has persisted through Gen Z maybe a little bit more strongly than I had realized. So I hope the best for it. If the word of mouth's strong enough, I will check it out.
Not that those books are comparable, like, genre-wise to Harry Potter, but I feel like that was kind of that generation's Harry Potter. Those were the books that they grew up
for sure.
with.
Yeah.
And then they had their iconic movies at the time, and so maybe that's contributing to the excitement.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk about a movie that already got mentioned very briefly, but I'd like to talk about Dumb Money, which at the time of this recording will be coming out. I'll be seeing in an early preview tomorrow. That's when this episode actually drops. So if you're listening to this episode the day it drops, I will be seeing Dumb Money tonight. And I've just been really excited for this one. I think the story of, the whole GameStop stock situation and how Wall Street got a taste of its own medicine there. And the fact that like we're able, that the cast is absolutely stacked, you know, with Paul Dano's always been one of my favorite actors, and then I'll forgive having Pete Davidson in there, but then you've got, you know, Seth Rogen, tons of people. Why am I blanking?
I think Nick
on
Offerman's in this too.
Yeah, Nick Offerman. Yeah. I was thinking of him. I was thinking of Sebastian Stan. So it's just a lot of clout there. And the fact that like we're making a movie about something that happened like less than 3 years ago, like that's pretty impressive. I remember back when The Social Network came out, like was that 2010, and I had been on Facebook since like 2007 at that point in time, and I was like, this is way too soon to be getting a movie about Facebook. And as with the quality of that movie, I'm happy to, you know, eat my words and say that I'm very much looking forward to Dumb Money and director Craig Gillespie's next outing here.
If you still want hope, too, if the Chris Evans thing crushed you, I did just Google on my work computer, by the way, is Sebastian Stan married? And the answer is no.
All right.
So, you know, you still have an option there, I guess.
Yes.
Is dating somebody, though, so you have some competition.
All right.
In case you wanted to know, Scotty.
Yeah. I was, you know, these are
to let everybody know.
These are the hard-hitting facts that I come here for. So. Okay. Back around the horn to Haley.
So my second one is kind of a basic choice, but it's going to be the Marvels. I think that, well, I hope that infuses a lot of fun into the MCU, especially after we have Loki, which will probably be pretty serious since he's dealing with lots of issues. But I think the Marvels looks like a great time. And between Iman Vellani, Brie Larson, and Teyonah Parris, I really love all three of those actresses, and I want to see some badass girls punching through stuff. I'll just say it.
For sure.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to get delayed. Like, I know we kind of talked about, is this movie going to get delayed? I feel like we talk about that every week, but they started releasing IMAX posters today. Like, the official Instagram of Marvel put out a new IMAX poster for this movie. Like, they're sticking in that date. I mean, I think they're kind of looking at it and saying, hey, we're kind of unopposed. There's not really any other genre superhero type movies during this time. Dune got moved. We got all the IMAX screens. I think it makes total sense for them to just lean in and just own it and go for it.
I did see they released, I forget where I saw it, like interviews with the three actresses that were probably done before the strikes. And so we've talked about that before. Clearly they have a little bit of content to promote the movie, but I think they're just leaning on the MCU hype in general.
Yeah, you can get Feige out there too, and like Nia DaCosta can get out there. So there's some people who can promote it, even if you don't have your talent, which sucks, but still, there's some people who can get the word out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the person that kind of gets the rawest deal here is Iman Vellani, but she seems to be rolling with the punches with the recent appearance she made at a con, like in cosplay and everything like that. She seems to be, you know, taking everything in stride and still using this as her moment, even though she can't be out in front on the red carpet or anything like that. But, you know, I do think it just speaks to the size of the Marvel machine a little bit. Like, once that marketing machine has got, you know, is chugging along, it's really not going to stop. So whereas with Dune, it was disappointing but felt like the right move. I think what you said there, Jay, is absolutely right. Like, this one just kind of makes sense. As unfortunate as it is for the talent, I don't think the movie is going to suffer in terms of gross by the strikes or not being able to do the red carpet premiere.
Yeah. So a movie I want to talk about is Napoleon, all 3 hours of it or whatever. But I'm really intrigued by this movie. Like, I love the talent. I love the idea of Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby playing these like extremely interesting historical characters. If you don't know anything about Napoleon and you're somebody who is like, you know, I could get into an autobiography. Like, if you can read a Napoleon autobiography, I think it'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Like, he's a fascinating person in history, not just from what he did, which is pretty nuts, but just his impact and just the personal stuff in his life is pretty crazy. When you add it all up, you have one of the most fascinating characters that has ever been on the planet. So to see what I feel like is a great casting of that person, Ridley Scott knows how to make a movie of this scale. He knows how to pump up the scale of like a war epic film and bring in the dialogue and the story and mesh it all together. So I think the pieces are there for something really special, and I'm really excited to see where that movie ultimately ends up.
Yeah, I feel like Napoleon, its only real competition is a movie that I don't think we're really going to talk about, and that's Ferrari, because I feel like Napoleon is like perfectly set up to be the dad movie of the season. Like you've got
sure.
You've got Ridley Scott, you've got this historical figure in Napoleon, and it really does feel like a spiritual success. Yeah, it feels like a spiritual successor to The Gladiator. So I'm pretty pumped for this one as well, and I have pretty high expectations for the quality. Okay. Another movie for me that I am looking forward to is going to be one that we don't have to wait that long for, The Creator, which comes out at the end of this month, and that is starring John David Washington, set in a post-apocalyptic world where AI has taken over, but this is coming from Gareth Edwards, who famously directed, or maybe not fully directed, Star Wars Rogue One. So for him to have another opportunity to tell a story with his sensibilities and not really be hamstrung in the way that he was working with Disney or Lucasfilm, I think is just really exciting. And some of the moral implications about like AI and how it presents itself in this world, I think look great. And one thing we haven't talked about on this show is actually one of the trailers for this movie used real world footage from the explosion that happened in Beirut a few years ago, or not all that long ago. So there was some controversy about that. I don't know if it made it into the final cut of the film, but I'm interested to see this one for many reasons, and it might be my most anticipated for, we're talking collectively about the fall and winter movies here, but specifically for the fall forthright, this might be my most anticipated movie.
So okay. I know that Jay probably knows this too, as the resident other sports person on this podcast, but at the LA Chargers game at SoFi Stadium Sunday.
Sunday.
I honestly, goodness, I don't know what day it is, and I've been like this whole week, so I'm sorry. On Sunday at the Chargers game, they had replicas of the AI people or robots or whatever from this movie in the stands, which is hilarious to me for a lot of reasons. But it was this weird social media thing where people were like, oh, the Chargers are filling their stadium with AI robots. And it was their attempt at some viral marketing, I think, or guerrilla marketing, but I don't know that it panned out the way they wanted it to.
Oh. Yeah, there was a campaign like that. I think it was last year that there was a horror movie. I think it was called Smile, and it was all these people smiling all creepy and stuff.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
They would buy these people tickets to Major League Baseball games and set them right behind right in the view of the camera, right? So you're watching the game on TV, and they're just sitting there smiling like a creepy person or whatever, and it's supposed to be. And I mean, it works. People were talking about it as a thing. So I guess that's what they were going for on some level.
Hey, they're doing something right, because while I might not be a sports person, all of these things make me want to be a sports person so I can experience them.
Join us.
Yeah, I'm getting closer. Getting closer.
You just pick a team and let it rip. Just I'm a this fan now, and just make it happen.
Yep.
Yeah, just make a choice. Just be organic about it.
Okay. Duly noted. Okay. I guess I'll just take the opportunity to mention one more that I'm excited for here, and that is Poor Things, starring Emma Stone and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. And the more and more I've seen and heard about this one, the more excited I get. It really does just feel like, Yorgos Lanthimos doing his take on what otherwise would be a Tim Burton story. And I hear amazing things about Emma Stone's performance. That Mark Ruffalo is going to be popping up in there, Willem Dafoe. And it just, it feels like it's going to fit those quirky indie kind of macabre sensibilities that I love so much. So definitely one to look out for me.
Yeah, Poor Things killed the Venice Film Festival too. People could not stop talking about it. It won the key film of the festival award, and everybody was saying that Emma Stone was just probably going to be contending for Best Actress now. Like this is going to be popping up against Barbie and Oppenheimer, and it's going to be right there in the mix. So
For sure.
I'm kind of getting some kind of like what Everything Everywhere All at Once did, where it just kind of came out of nowhere and took the Oscars by storm.
Yeah.
I think you could see a similar path here for Poor Things too, for sure.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Did we want to throw out any of those that we might not be as excited about?
I mean, I'm not excited about Aquaman and the Last Kingdom. We'll see what the trailer
Careful,
looks like.
Haley.
I know.
I'm just
We're gonna
kidding.
talk
No,
about it later,
people are
so
fans
I'll
and they
just-
get mad about stuff, but we don't
I'm
care.
Sorry, it just doesn't look great to me. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, that movie is not going to do well, but so
Okay.
you're not in bad company, I don't think. I am not that excited about Wonka because I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it's supposed to be, and I'm like, what are we doing with the Johnny Depp stuff? Like, is this supposed to be like, why? Is it a musical? Because the director came out today was like, it's not a musical, but Timothy Chalamet can really sing. It's like, so what is it then? So it's just that's annoying, and I know that. It's going to be, I guess, it's going to try to be the holiday movie. It's like we got like candy and songs and stuff, and it's holiday. But man, I have a hard time seeing that movie taking off. I just do and I can see a path for me getting proven wrong. It's Timothy Chalamet, like I get it, but it's just man, like I don't know. I don't think people are that people that should like the target audience for that movie does not seem that excited about it, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah. I saw some headlines.
Seems like a miss.
Yeah, I saw some headlines comparing Timothy Chalamet's singing voice to like that of Bing Crosby. So if there's going to be any like saving grace for this movie, I think it's going to be his vocal chops because like his performance is just not doing it to me. Like the line that just always sticks out to me is that I'm making chocolate, of course. It's like no, that's just not landing on any level whatsoever for me.
Yeah, it's bad. It's just not good.
I believe, I don't think I was here this week, but I believe someone on this show described it as a high school performance of Willy Wonka, which I think just that nails it, direct hit.
Yeah,
Cold as ice.
Shots fired. Yeah. Okay, one that is not super anticipated for me is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's. It's like recently we've seen this trend of like video game adaptations really upping their game in terms of quality and reception. And I'm just not feeling it on this one. I'm not super familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's. I have a basic understanding of what the concept is and some of the lore. But I think between the trailers that we've seen making it seem really predictable to me and the fact that there was like talk about there being like a 3-hour cut out there, like I am just not interested in sitting in a theater for like probably not even close to 2 hours. Like 1 hour 45 minutes should be tops for like a movie like this. Best of luck to Five Nights at Freddy's and Josh Hutcherson, but I'm not feeling it at this point in time.
I'm getting like some Nostradamus feelings of like the release, the whatever cut. I don't know who directed this, but like whenever this movie, like if it doesn't do well, it's like, well, there was actually a better cut, and we have like another Snyder cut on our hands. Like, that's not a world that I want to live in.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, that will do it for our fall 2023 movie preview. Let's check in with the listeners and get an update on our Spotify poll.
Yeah, so this week, last week, we asked about, we talked a lot about loose ends in the MCU. We talked about how with all of these new projects and new characters, and we're fans speaking this, like we're frustrated with this idea of just all of these characters being introduced and storylines being introduced and things getting teased, but then they're just really being radio silent. And part of that's COVID delays, part of that's, now with actors strike and that type of stuff, new project delays and all this type of stuff. But still, there's a lot of loose ends in the MCU, and we covered a few. And we asked people, what's one of your most frustrating ones? So some of the ones that we mentioned were mentioned. A lot of talk about White Vision. People are not happy about White Vision. Where did he go? Right. He's just been flying around somewhere this whole time. A lot of talk about Mordo, and it's fair. Like he just popped in and popped out, like what's he been up to? A lot of talk about Shang-Chi, the ring sending a beacon, the post-credit scene, things like that. People really brought that up a lot and brought that to light. And then Eternals. Like Eternals left a lot of loose ends, especially the Celestial sticking out of the ocean. Somebody mentioned something about like in Kendall 2311 said something about like, wouldn't this cause environmental problems? And yeah, probably. I mean, wouldn't the entire Earth be destroyed? Like, I don't know. I see articles all the time. Like, if a football field sized meteor hits us, we're all dead. You know, so.
This oblong spheroid now has a person sticking out of like one end of it. It's gonna throw the axis off.
Earth 616 is a lot stronger than our Earth.
Okay.
I guess so. I guess that's the headcanon, if you want to do it. And then finally, I just got to mention, like, who bought Stark Tower? Like, just tell us. You know, let's just move on here from this. Just I don't know, tweet it out or something, so we just know.
I wanted to take this opportunity. I co-signed with the Shang-Chi, the Beacon teaser as kind of the most frustrating dangling thread currently. But I do want to go all the way back to 2015's Ant-Man and point out that Martin Donovan's character was like an employee of he was like a member of like the 10 Rings or something like that, and he absconded off with a case of PIM particles, and that was never followed up on, and I still take issue with that.
Well, also on the note of Ant-Man, I just got my copy of Look Out for the Little Guy today, and I read through the introduction when I was eating dinner, and the premise, I guess, skip forward if you don't want to know, but whatever. The premise is like the Avengers told Scott to tell their story.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very interested to keep reading because that's not what I thought it was going to be about. Stay tuned.
That might explain the inflated ego at the beginning of that movie a little bit. Like, yeah, I was picked out of all the Avengers to be the one to tell my story.
That's literally like what the introduction
Oh,
says.
is it?
It's like,
Nice.
Hawkeye and the Hulk came to me, and they're like, only you can do this, Scott. And I'm like, is this real? Or is this him making this up?
Yeah. Good times. All right. With that said and done, let's move on to the lightning round. And for anybody that may be listening in for the first time or watching for the first time, the way the lightning round works is that we have a list of topics that we didn't cover as main stories here, and we'll basically run them down. And when somebody hears one that they're interested in, they can chime in, buzz in by saying their name. And the first one to buzz in gets to tackle the topic, and we all are allotted at least one rebuttal. Sometimes we have little asides that we refer affectionately to as tiny butts and whatever, other little adages we want to throw in there. The rules are just there for, posterity's sake. We don't really stick to them. So,
it's a fluid process.
It is. As is this whole stream been. So, all right. First up, Lionsgate will officially handle distribution for the upcoming Bill Skarsgård-led reboot of The Crow. The film is expected to be released sometime in 2024.
Jay, The Crow has a huge cult following. So this movie has been rumored for a really long time. It's been talked about for a really long time. And now with Bill Skarsgård behind it, I think you got to be excited about that if you're into that movie and you want to see a reimagining of it on some level. So, yeah, I think if you're a fan of this, like finally getting sort of an idea of a release date, it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath on this one because this has been, since I've been a fan of like films and the behind the scenes and paid more attention to it, I think the entire time I've been at that level of fandom, there's been talks of the Crow reboot. Yeah. So I'll believe it when I see it. But I do think Bill Skarsgård is an interesting and good choice. So, all right. Next up, Eli Roth's upcoming slasher film Thanksgiving has dropped its first trailer. The film, which stars Patrick Dempsey and Addison Rae, is based on a fake trailer that Roth created for Quentin Tarantino's 2007 film Grindhouse. The film will hit theaters on November 17th. Scotty. Yeah, I'll say I'm really looking forward to this one. I think Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and I think it's been poorly underrepresented in the world of movies. We have, Throw Mama from the Train, a few other ones, but the fact that we're going to get a horror slasher Thanksgiving film really excites me, and I think this one is going to do what another horror comedy that recently came out didn't really do for me, and that was Slaughterhouse. No spoilers for that, but I did see that one, and it's worth a watch, but didn't live up to the heights that I had in mind when you take a high concept slasher film and combine the comedy and the absurdity right there, I think Thanksgiving is going to deliver in the way that I'm looking for. Apple TV Plus has released its first trailer for its upcoming MonstersVerse series, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. The series stars Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell playing the same character. The series will take place both in the 1950s and in the period of time following 2014's Godzilla, and will revolve around the protagonist discovering secrets of the Monarch organization at the center of the franchise.
Jay, we talked about this 3 weeks ago, something like that, when they released just like the announcement that it was happening.
Right.
So this is the actual first trailer of it that was dropped. And it looks really good. Like, for somebody who's into that, I don't want to like throw any spoilers out there, but there's like, they brought in more characters from people who were in other movies in this whole thing, like the Kong of it all and the Godzilla of it all. Like, they brought some people in from those properties to help connect it. So it looks like it's got the budget, it's got the star power. And I think if you're at least interested in seeing that universe grow, if you're looking at Godzilla versus Kong or whatever that comes out next year and you're excited about that, I think this looks like an interesting watch. Like, the idea of discovering the Monarch organization and what it is and all the secrets behind it and everything, it's pretty intriguing, like if you're a fan of that.
Yeah, I'll respond to this one as well. And I appreciate you tiptoeing around the spoilers there, Jay, because that was one thought that I had recurring while watching this. Number one, the amount of footage that we got to see from certain monsters, I found myself wondering, did they make all of this like for the first time for this series? Are they using archival footage? And especially with some of the characters that we see, I know a few instances without a doubt that they were archival footage, but I found myself questioning other instances, like, do they actually pull in like some of this big name talent to appear in this series? And I do think, Apple TV Plus has the money to do that if they so choose to, but I'll be watching this one pretty closely because I'm pretty excited for it. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has dropped its first TV spot teaser trailer with a full trailer to be released this Thursday. The film is currently scheduled to hit theaters on December 20th.
Haley, I'll go.
She's so annoyed.
Well, I just don't get the point of them releasing this movie when this is still part of the DCEU. We're trying to cut ties with that. Like, it's just, honestly, it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the PR of this movie, which will be James Gunn trying to convince everybody and gaslight us that this is in the DCU. Like, he will try. Just wait. And we will report on it. He'll do the Flash thing where he's like, maybe, could happen, or whatever. And I'm going to be so annoyed by that.
Well, and his credibility, I feel like, it starts to tank when he does that now. And why I'm just like, I don't know why we're still bothering. Ugh, I'm sorry.
If you're an Aquaman fan, like, go love it. Like, we want it for you. But like, this movie is going to struggle. Like, it is going to really struggle because, like, I mean, Blue Beetle did everything it could to break away from this DCEU stuff, and it struggled. The Flash, like, historically bombed. And so this movie's tied to that, whether it wants to be or not. It is tied to The Flash and the stink of all of that. And it has got to overcome all that, and it can't put Jason Momoa out there to promote it.
Right.
And Nicole Kidman's in this movie, and like you can't get these people out there. You just got to throw it out there and see what happens. And the word of mouth is not going to catch on. It's just not.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on this one because on the one hand, like, we'll have more to talk about after the full trailer or teaser trailer that we get, later this week. But I'm really not a fan of this trend of, like, and it seemed like we had moved away from it for a while, but like the teaser for the teaser, like, I don't need a 30-second teaser telling me that there's a trailer coming later. Just like, give me the trailer when the time comes. But gripes aside, I do acknowledge that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, like, it's going to struggle. It has a enormous uphill to climb here, but I am still, excited, and I think that's my ability to kind of, like, appreciate this content and these characters without being, like, super beholden to them and, like, accepting the fact that the DCEU might be, on its way out. But I can still look forward to these characters and building upon what, you know, the first movie did. And to that end, the little bit that I can glean from this plot is that they are bringing back Yahya Abdul-Mateen's Black Manta, and it looks like he's going to be the primary antagonist. And he was one of my favorite parts about the first movie. So the fact that they're going to, you know, build upon that at least gives me some hope for this movie, even though financially I don't think it stands a chance at all, unfortunately. Okay. Haunted Mansion will begin streaming on Disney Plus on October 4th.
Haley, yay! Haunted Mansion was so much fun. And like I said, it was going to come out right before spooky season. So I hope that it does really well as streaming and that people discover it and watch it and have a great time with that holiday film.
Well said. Tim Burton recently told The Independent that the upcoming Beetlejuice 2 is 99% done and only needs less than 2 days of filming to complete. The film production was shut down due to Hollywood strikes.
Haley, again. This really surprised me to read that because we've only been talking about this movie as long as we've been doing this show and not even quite that long. And so I kind of wonder if in that kind of fun way that Tim Burton has of making his films, like, is it a lower budget? Like, does it feel authentic, like an authentic Tim Burton film? Like, that gives me some hope for it because I'm not super excited about this sequel. I kind of wish, you know, we could leave some things alone, like we were talking about with The Crow. But man, they've filmed this thing like lickety split.
Yeah, he said that, I think, in the I guess this is a tiny butt, I don't know. He said that in the interview here, where he was just like, we knew exactly what we needed to do and we just banged it out. Like, we just went in and filmed everything back to back to back. And the literal quote was, we need an afternoon and a half and we'll be done. So this is bad timing for old Tim Burton.
Yeah. I didn't read the article on this one, but I couldn't help but get like the sentiment that he might be embellishing a little bit by saying like, 2 more days of filming and would have completed. Yeah, principal photography would have been done, but when it comes to making a movie, there's so much more that still needs to happen. And like, you know, whether that's pickups here and there or second unit directors doing this or that and everything else that goes on. I think I kind of see Tim Burton, you know, bending his language a little bit to get the most impact in terms of these headlines, but that's his right and his privilege. Okay. In the first 5 days since its Disney Plus release on September 6th, The Little Mermaid, the live-action reimagining of the 1989 Oscar-winning animated classic, has collected 16 million views worldwide, according to the platform.
Jay, this is really solid. This is a really solid debut for that movie, and I think we talked about this probably being the reality, is that even though The Little Mermaid didn't exactly kill it at the box office, it did okay. It is probably going to have a pretty good run on Disney Plus, and it has from the beginning. It shows us that people have always kind of been interested in seeing it. It's just that maybe not as many people were interested in seeing it in the theater. But if you are Disney, you like to see this, because what this means is that if you want to continue exploring the universe, if you want to keep making things, a lot of times these movies get their second life outside of the theater. Spider-Verse is an example that I always go to. Like, that movie, the first one, when it came out, was not a great box office success by measure of how we measure the box office. But it went on TV platforms, it went on streaming, and people loved it and talked about it and streamed it like crazy. And then that meant that when the sequel was put on the T, that it was just like they just completely destroyed the box office, like took over, because people were primed through streaming at home to want more. And then when they provided at the box office, you know, so a lot of times these projects, like, they can have these long lives. They can get onto a streaming platform and they can grow their audience on the streaming platform. It doesn't all have to be done in a theater.
Right. I guess my takeaway is that 16 million views in 6 days, and not a single person has had issue with the bird being underwater.
Hey, I got like, people were sending me messages being like, hey, it's a bird that blah blah blah. I was like, all right, thanks, like Crap Brothers or whatever, like, you know, I didn't need a nature lesson or whatever.
I still
good
haven't
times.
seen it.
Oh wow, okay.
Singing underwater, by the way, singing underwater still. I know I should just let it go, but breathing is one thing.
Jay's new beef is with the animated bird.
Yeah, I'm pivoting.
All right.
I'm pivoting on the beef.
Okay. Aquafina.
I'm gonna have a beef with the whole with the whole cast of Shang-Chi. Yeah, you were going there too, like Aquafina and Simu Liu.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just I'm stacking them up.
Ben Kingsley, watch out. Crosshairs are on you.
Yeah, you're next.
All right. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 releases digitally on October 10th and is available on physical media on October 31st.
Haley, so get your popcorn and your animated robot Tom Cruise thing that you have in your house and sit down and watch Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's all I could think of when I saw that headline. Refer to last week's conversation.
Okay.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Evergreen content here. Evergreen content. All right. A Murder, She Wrote film adaptation is in the works at Universal Studios. The film will be written by Lauren Schuker Blum and Rebecca Angelo, with Amy Pascal attached to produce. A TV series reboot was planned in 2013 but was ultimately scrapped.
Haley, this Jay's in my head because I saw this and I was like, this is Hollywood like taking the wrong cues, right, and doing the wrong things. If you know what Murder, She Wrote is, you know that Angela Lansbury played the titular role, and it's like sacred to the people who loved Murder, She Wrote. And if they had to kill a TV show in 2013, do we really think that a movie's gonna be better? I don't know. Maybe it will. We don't have any casting news. This is like super preliminary stuff. But yeah, like Johnny B. Skulls in the chat says, who's asking for this?
We'll just give it a little bit of time. We're going to start to hear about the Matlock movie that's also in the works, and we're going to get the Murder, She Wrote Matlock shared universe before too long here.
It's the universe.
Then everybody will be asking for it.
Hollywood's like always so far behind us. Like by the time we've realized what we want, and they've been like, oh, they want this. Like, let's start making it. Like we've already moved on. We want something else. Yeah. Like we've moved on. We're kind of starting to move on from shared universes a little bit. Like as a society, you know, I know we're still fans, but like as a society, people are not super crazy about the huge shared universe across shows and movies and all this. And that's just an example. Like people are going nuts for that in the lead up to Avengers Endgame, right? Because it was the biggest thing in the world. But then now everybody's like, well, we got to make shared universe. It's like, well, we kind of moved on a little bit from that. Right. Like, so it's just kind of like, it's like they're working on a delay a little bit here.
Even more so with the strikes.
Well, that was totally fabricated.
Yeah.
Like Scotty just made that up.
Oh, I did not. This is, hard-hitting news. Like I said, everything is fact-checked here. Look it up.
You heard it here first.
All right. And our final headline for the episode here, Netflix debuted an official trailer for Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher series based on the Edgar Allan Poe work of the same name. Scotty?
A
lot of book news today.
Interesting take. So they've turned it into this like crime family drama, which I thought was kind of funny. Maybe trying to emulate in a way, this is maybe a bit of a stretch, but emulate what's that show that everybody was watching?
American Horror Story?
With the family. No. Oh my god.
Oh, from Mike Flanagan as well? Haunting of Hill House?
No,
Sorry.
The family.
Oh, Succession.
Who's like Succession.
We got there.
You just kept saying the family.
We got there.
There's a million things that could fit that.
We got there.
It's kind of trying to emulate Succession in a way, from what I saw in the trailer, and I was like, well, that's kind of a updated take on it, but I don't know how much it does or doesn't make sense that it's being based on Edgar Allan Poe's work.
Yeah. The Fall of the House of Usher is actually one of my favorite stories from Edgar Allan Poe. So I was anticipating this one, but it does seem to be a bit of a departure and definitely a modernization of that tale. And I actually found myself kind of like getting vibes of like Ryan Murphy series, like American Horror Story, where yes, they have these horror elements, but it's also kind of very edgy and topical. So I'll still, I like Mike Flanagan as a creator, so I will stay tuned. Okay, and that does it for another episode of Multiverse News. We made it. We got through this. Good job, everyone.
Good job, Scotty.
Yeah, Scotty is the MVP, just
Yep.
running everything from the command center.
That's a good place to be with, such esteemed company here. So why don't you all let the people know what else you have going on here, starting with Mrs. Hobbs here, excuse me.
First and foremost, you can find me at Source Pages, a reading collective where Brian V. Klein and I read source material as primers for all the geeky TV shows and movies we love. Right now, we're on a break in between stuff, so we're going back to some Secret Wars comics coverage. And then you can find me aforementioned Bingers Assemble, soon Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater, and also make sure you're checking out PandaVision, where Ashley Coffin and I and a rotating panel is covering Ahsoka.
Very cool. We'll be looking forward to all of that. And the herd's very own Jay Sisson. What's going on, Jay?
The Thundering Herd.
The Thundering Herd,
Thank you very
excuse
much. Well, you can find me at Commute the Podcast, where we talk about, me and my co-hosts talk about 3 interesting things in 20 minutes to try to give you some interesting things that maybe you've never heard about before. And I do have to pop in and say that the PandaVision coverage on Ahsoka has been great. Really enjoyed hearing you guys in that vein. I, as somebody who didn't watch Rebels, I know, okay, I get it. All right, I should have, but I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. It's been good having these perspectives of people being like, yeah, this person's this person and this person's this person, being like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. So definitely check that out. If you're watching Ahsoka, like, that's a really good guide. If you're a super Rebels fan, if you're like, you didn't watch it at all, it works. So yeah. And real quick too, if you haven't reviewed Multiverse News on anything, that really does help us out. So if you pop over to Apple Podcasts and write a review, that really helps. I mean, it should be 5 stars probably, like, if you're going to do it. And then if you go over to Spotify, same thing. You can rate the show 5 stars. So if you haven't done that, like, please help us out a little bit. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and to that end, also check out our social medias. Jay's been doing a stand-up job on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, so you can find Multiverse News wherever you get your podcast or wherever you get your social media. As for me, I want to plug.
I haven't been doing great on the. Oh, sorry, sorry. I haven't been doing great on the Twitter, but the Instagram, yeah, stay pretty up to date with that.
Well, Twitter's not even a thing anymore; it's X, so that shows how much I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, as for me, I'd like to mention Animation Deliberation. It's the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And we've got, so much going on right now. Archer airing its final season. Futurama's revival is still happening. And just so much out there. So come in, whatever you're looking for, be it one of those series or anime. We've got something for you as long as you're a fan of animated content. Animation Deliberation, wherever you get your podcast. And thank you for listening and watching, and leave those 5-star reviews. You stay classy, Multiverse.